Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. Welcome to week 4 on the Square on Point Sew Along. This week we're doing blocks 7 and 8. Block 7 is called Spokes, and here it is. I've changed this up from when it was first presented, I believe back in May. I've made it a little bit easier to piece. This is a 3x3 grid. So we have 3 units across and 3 units down. The units are a plain block, and this side unit is like this, and then a square on point is in the middle. I'm going to go over the patches, but I'm going to show you what they look like and that I've already cut, because that makes more sense, I think. But all of the patches are listed here and shows you how to cut them, and also the AccuQuilt dies if you have AccuQuilt. So for patch A, we have a 4-inch finished square. These are 4.5 inches cut, and these are for the corner units. Patch B is a 2-inch by 4-inch finished rectangle, and these go in the side units. Patch C are 2-inch finished squares. We cut 2.5-inch squares. You can strip piece these. I didn't have enough length to strip piece from one piece, but you can strip piece by cutting a 2.5-inch strip by about 11 inches of both of these. And you can strip piece them and then cut them into segments if you like, but I just went ahead and cut them into squares. Later on we'll be sewing these together like this. And then the B patch will be sewn like this, and this would be the side unit. The D patch is a 2-inch finished half square triangle, and this is for the square on point. And we're cutting these larger. We're cutting these to 3 inches, and we'll trim them down later. And then patch E is the square on point. It's 4-inch finished, and this is cut at 3 3/8 inch squares. So we'll take the D patches and sew them on like this. So you have your center unit, you have your side units, and then you have your corner units. So we'll piece those now. And let's start with the square on point. We cut the square the exact size we need, because we need to get a good size that we start off with. And I'll show you that as we go. And we're going to start by piecing opposite sides, and we've cut these triangles a little bit larger. If you're using AccuQuilt, you'll just cut your regular size because they're already cut accurately. We turn one of the triangles over and we center this like that. And you just check these corner triangles that are peeking out from underneath and just try to get them the same size. Then stitch a true 1/4 inch. Do that to this side and do that to this side. Then press your seams open. You're going to cut off the nubs here and here. Just lay your ruler across the square on point fabric and then trim off these nubs. Now you're going to do the other two the same way. Put the triangle down and center it like this. If you're using AccuQuilt, your piece will be cut so it has an angle on these sides, so you line up those angles. If you can't get them exactly right, just center it. You don't want to, if this triangle is not angled right on these edges, it doesn't fit, don't try to stretch it. You'll just stretch the block out of shape. Just center it as much as you can and stitch. Now we're going to stitch a true 1/4 inch and do that to both sides. Now here's our square on point, and the reason we cut this the exact size, the fabric in the center, and stitched at a true 1/4 inch is that we needed this to be the size it needs to be, because we're going to trim off parts of the triangles. That's the part we cut bigger. So you need to trim this down to 4.5 inches. You put your ruler over the piece, and we're looking at the 1/4 inch mark on both sides, well, really on all the sides, and we want to make sure that the 1/4 inch is outside that point. so we won't be cutting off any points. And you'll have to check each point and just move it over. So here, this point is fine and this point is fine. This point is a little off, so I'm going to move it down just a little bit. And then this point's a little bit off, so I'm going to just split the difference. Then you check that you have enough room over here to trim off and enough room down here to trim off. That's past the 4.5. And then we have enough to trim off here just a little bit and up here. So then you trim your two sides. And flip this around. Match your 4.5 on this side, and then trim. Before you trim, you need to check to make sure everything still looks good. Make sure these 1/4 inches still look good here and here. Now trim. So there's your square on point unit. Next, we're going to piece our side units. We'll take all of our squares, or if you're strip piecing, you sew your background strip to your accent fabric strip and press the seams open. Then you're subcut into 4 at 2.5 inch segments. But I'm stitching squares, so I'll just stitch these together and press the seams open. Next, we're going to sew the patch B rectangle like this, and just check the diagram for the placement of the fabric. And then press your seams open. All of our units are finished, and now we just put them together on the proppet board. You just look at the diagram on the instructions and lay the pieces out. There you go. So the top units together, the center and the bottom, press the seams and then sew the rows together. Now let's move on to block 8. This is block 8 and it's called Mosaic. And I switched this block out with another one that was supposed to go in there called 1904 Star. I had so much trouble piecing the sample block of that, and I don't know why, but I did it twice. I ripped it out and I just said, nope, forget it. Something's not right. So maybe next time I pick it up, it'll work. But I came up with this new one called Mosaic, and I think you're going to really like it. It's really pretty. This is a 3x3 grid. We're going to make the same unit. This is our square on point, but we're going to put that on point. And sometimes they call this a square and a square and a square. It's pretty easy to piece, and I think you'll enjoy this block. So I'm not going to go over the individual patches. They are here for your rotary cutting, and also the AccuQuilt dies that cut these patches are here as well. In my demo, I'm going to cut the triangles bigger and trim them down later because I think you have more success and I have more success doing it that way. You can cut the exact size, and I have both the measurements in the cutting instructions. So you can cut them the exact size or cut your to trim size. So let me show you what I've done so far. These are the units we're going to make, and they're all the same, they're just reversed in fabric. We'll make 5 of these. I'll call them the dark units because the dark is on the outside, and these are the light units. We'll make 5 dark units and 4 light units. I've cut all the pieces. I've made 2 light pieces and 1 dark piece already. I'll just show you how to piece one of them because they're all pieced the same, whether they're light or dark. It's just the different fabrics. Our 2-inch square that goes in the center is cut 2.5 inches. We cut this the exact size. Then our next part is the B patch, and we cut these 3.5 inches, and then we cut them in half twice on the diagonal. Here's what they look like before you cut them. And so we'll take these 2, and this is our first square on point. Like we've done in the block 7 in this video, we'll piece the opposite sides first, press them, trim off the nubs, and then piece the remaining sides. Press and trim off the nubs. Because we cut the triangles larger, stitch a true 1/4 inch to make these. Now we'll just cut these off. And then stitch the second round with the true 1/4 inch. Now we're going to trim this down to 3 3/8. Just position the ruler and check all of your outside. You're not going to be trimming off too much. So just make sure you have a good 1/4 inch between the point and the end of the fabric. And it's okay on here. It's a little bit off over here. So I'm going to just move it around, kind of split the difference. So 3 3/8. It's really close. Trim this. You see, I'm trimming off very little. And then flip this around and position it on your 3 3/8. 3 3/8 is a little bit harder to do, but just take your time and you can do it. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. Just get it as close as you can. So do that to all of them. Now take your A patches and do the same way. Just repeat exactly what you just did. So the opposite sides first, press the seams, trim the nubs, and so the remaining sides, press the seams. We're going to trim these up to 4 1/2 inches. And remember to stitch a true 1/4 inch on these. Now I've finished all of my light colored units. I needed 4 of those. And next, go ahead and piece the 5 dark units the same way. Now we're just going to take all of our units and lay out the block. And there you go. So the top units together, the middle and the bottom, press the seams and then sew all the rows together. Next week, I'll be giving you some instructions for cutting and piecing the cornerstones and sashing units, in case some of you wanted to get started with that. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.